for the battler, for the working man. There was equal rights for both black and white, for men, women, and both. And money couldn't buy nor influence the way you decide to vote.
I wasn't going to post it. Sorry, we didn't manage to actually hook up.
I got you to open. I got one of the Aboriginal people to do a welcome to family first.
The secret country, yeah. Secret country. It's a secret country.
What do we want? Change! When do we want it? Now! Let's go and show them. What do we want? Change! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Change! And when do we want it? Now! What do we want? Change! When do we want it? Now!
Change! It's a secret country. A secret country. A secret country. A secret country. A secret country.
Now, Forest! Save them! We need our oxygen!
A secret country. Secret country, yeah. Secret country, secret country, yeah.
Change! Now! Change! Now! Change! Now! Change! Now! Change! Now!
Just going to have Aaron sing a couple of songs.
This day of the mountain below.
I know that we have the great basis here for a wonderful democracy if we have the guts, the care and the interest to participate in that democracy, to make that culture of democracy work. And so when I see you here today, I know some of you will ask, well, we're all we have. But frankly, we're all we need.
And a few weeks later, 3,000 people, 10% of the population of the entire Shire, turned out on Tathra Beach to form the human sign that kick-started clean energy for eternity.
Under the proposed changes to the eligibility criteria for New Start allowance, they will only receive 6 months of support out of any 12-month period. They'll be required to apply for 40 jobs a month, and they'll be required to work 25 hours a week on a Work for the Dole program. I'd just actually like to examine each of these obligations and how it will affect my family. Number one, consigning people to no income for 6 months because of some ideological misconception that they are lazy, bludgers and job snobs is a disaster in the making. We already know there's not enough jobs to go around. We as parents and members of this community know these obligations will lead to homelessness, suicide and crime through lack of better choices for our young people. We also know most of our children have to leave this area for work and further opportunities. This is going to be a much scarier proposition now that they have a much smaller safety net to rely on should this relocation not work out. But expecting that parents, because let's face it, who else is it going to be, will support their children who are out of work until they are 30 is unfair on parents and humiliating for their children, who we hope by 30 are settled in their own lives with children and homes of their own. And that's not to mention that many of us are facing the same employment challenges at the grey-haired end of the market. So, about applying for 40 jobs a month. What jobs? As an employer myself, I don't want to be part of this ridiculous requirement. So here's my small piece of civil disobedience to this. Some of you know where I work. If you do so, please tell others. I have a form letter or a draft email that I'll supply to you stating you have unsuccessfully applied for work with my organisation and wishing you the best for the future. Come and get one as often as you need. In 2002, the most positive things that participants would say about their work for the Dole Time was, at least it got me out of bed in the morning. Well, hello, doesn't a job do that? Let's increase the New Start allowance by $50 a week so people can afford to live while they look for work. Let's reinstate TAFE to its former status and please keep tertiary education fees affordable. We need our kids to have good lives.
We are all desperate asylum seekers. That is the truth. We're all in need.
Good afternoon. It's great to see so many out. There is no excuse for ongoing detention of children and adults. There is no excuse to blame what is happening today on what another government did last year. We at Bega Valley Rural Australians for Refugees are opposed to the policy of transferring asylum seekers to remote offshore detention centres for processing of their claim. We believe this policy is incompatible with Australia's international obligations and the basic principles of refugee protection. If the Abbott government was truly committed to avoiding the devastating psychological impacts of prolonged detention on both children and adults, it could implement similar models of community release for the asylum seekers currently detained on Christmas Island and in Nauru and Manus detention centres. Today, we place the onus on Minister Morrison to demonstrate that the protection of vulnerable children is more important to this government than the pursuit of small-minded political goals. Australia's asylum seeker policies have delivered up to $10 billion to private contractors, with offshore contracts alone valued at $860,000 per person for 1 year last year. Why is the money not staying here in Australia? Our tax money went around the globe.
I'm speaking today not as a Bega Valley Shire councillor, but as an enraged citizen wanting a better government for the young people.
I want to speak out particularly for regional youth. And you know who you are. You don't have cars or only travel short distances. How do you feel about applying for 40 jobs over a month? There wouldn't be that many jobs in the whole valley if you could manage to travel to them anyway.
I want you to recognise the only way that we can make an effective lobby group is to do it as groups. Individuals can write letters as much as you like or get the blank email back or the blank letter if you get a response at all. We must come together as a group, and that comes back to community.
I honour the spirit of this land and the Dirrangunj people who belong to the land and who've cared for it for thousands upon thousands and thousands of years. Thank you. Unless it radically changes its course, the present government will be remembered as the cruelest and most ignorant government in our history. Cruel because of the impacts on every Australian, and most particularly our most vulnerable, the sick, the disabled, the elderly, those with mental illness, people who are poor, single-parent families, the list goes on and on. Many of our Indigenous people will be hit most cruelly by these policies. And I say ignorant because this government is blinkered and blinded by its own addiction to its set of beliefs, its own ideology, which it is imposing like a bunch of fundamentalist religious zealots on the rest of us, whether we want it or not. One of the many examples of ignorance is the huge list of programs and projects that have been defunded overnight. A local example of sudden defunded and highly successful program is across the road, our Women's Refuge. And proudly, 25 years later, it was functioning highly successfully with a very, very skilled team of staff who were specialised in domestic violence issues and what the needs were. Domestic violence is by far the largest category that makes up homeless people in Australia. Every fortnight, 3 women in Australia die from domestic violence. We're hearing about terrorism. It's in our own neighbourhoods already, right under the radar. And then there's a tendering process, and whoops, they don't get it. And there's this strange talk about anomalies in the tendering process. If it wasn't done properly, do it again. You can't mess around with services like this, just like you can't put mentally ill people under more stress. There will be more suicides. You can't mess around with domestic violence services. You're going to put lives at risk. People are in danger. The talk about deregulating universities is highly dangerous. The person that first developed the student loan system in Australia, who is a highly conservative economist, has spoken against increasing student fees. And 10, 20 years down the track, where are we going to get science teachers in our schools, particularly the way we pay our teachers? If we don't have the science teachers, we don't have doctors, we don't have engineers, we don't have nurses. Where is the future of this country going? Each other. We can model the behaviours we would love to see in Parliament. We can listen deeply to each other's concerns and their visions and dreams. And even if we don't agree, at least we understand it, and we can take in multiple perspectives and get a bigger vision of how things can move forward. We, in our daily lives, can pull this power back to the people. And then we can think deeply how we vote in 2 years.
I'm hoping someone's sending a photo of today to Mr Abbott, because it strikes me that we're Team Australia. So I've been working at our local TAFE for over 20 years, and I'm a literacy and numeracy teacher, so for as long as I've been there, courses in reading, writing and arithmetic have been free. As of next year, under Smart and Skilled, or we call it Dumb and Useless, there'll be a charge. So there's no prizes for guessing who most needs literacy, numeracy in our society. Those who have not. As of next year, under Smart and Skilled, there will be no tutorial support. there'll be a charge for an extra course. For-profit providers are already moving into our community. Some have been establishing here over the last year, have taken over some other services. They're going to be providers of for-profit training, because no longer will TAFE receive a budget. We have to compete for that budget against for-profit providers. You guys have got to decide whether that money's best off with going to for-profit, your tax dollars to for-profit, or to support a TAFE. These for-profit providers don't provide counselling services, they don't provide libraries, they don't provide people who have specialist support for the disadvantaged in our community, those with disabilities. They don't provide language services for our migrants. So I guess it's for us to decide, will we accept that? Now, there is a state election coming up early next year, so I guess we've got a chance locally to make some impact on that. I don't know how many people here have gone to TAFE, done a course, or know of people who've done them. But up until now, you can go to TAFE and pay an administration fee and either train, retrain, or upskill. As of next year, under the wonderful Smart and Skilled, if you don't have a certificate too, you'll be lucky, you'll get a coupon and you'll be able to pay about $240 for the privilege. Once you've used your coupon in targeted areas, because the government will only support those areas that they see as vocationally imperative, and as Fiona pointed out before and a few others, we're not sure where all these jobs are that they're pointing to. But once you've used your coupon, you're then going to be forced to pay full commercial cost. Apprenticeships are being cut in duration by about 25% already. Under the funding cycle that I've seen that are preparing for Smart and Skilled, that will be reduced by almost half. So class time for apprentices, the lifeblood of our nation, those who get the skills to go and do the jobs, such as they are, will have half the time in general specific training. If they're lucky, the workplaces they're in will give them enough generalist skills, but most of them will just have a very, very narrow stream of skilling. They'll get ticked off in their new, wonderful, shortened apprenticeship, and then they'll have a ticket. They'll have a Cert 3 or Cert 4. They're going to have to pay commercially if they actually want to upgrade their skills and go and do into another workplace that requires a different skill set, because they won't have been trained with that generalist skill set that we expect our apprentices to have. We've got to leave a legacy, and that's right. At the moment, if we accept what's happening, there will be no legacy, just a debt that we and our kids will have to face. We've got to move from that. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the message, is go away. Think about that, you know. Think about how you can talk to the community, your families, you know, and how you can support the original people.
Because there are truths to be told here.
Wearing someone else's crown just keeps your country in the ground. It's a secret country. It's a secret country, yeah. In a secret country. In a secret country, yeah.
I first want to honour the First Nation custodians, past and present, and I appreciated your speech. It was very uplifting to see everybody march in here, and then afterwards hearing all of these stories. It's pretty sad. The Abbott government has a lot to answer for. And I've tried to figure out what should I talk about today. Should I talk about the $5 billion over the next 5 years that is lost for the pensioners? Or should I talk about the $1.1 billion lost this year to states and territories for the public health? Or should I say the $1.6 billion they've removed from preventative health? And I figured I don't need to tell you that, because you already know how bad that's going to affect you. So just remember, we've lost billions and billions of dollars in the healthcare industry, and it's not going to stop. We also have told, and it's in the media everywhere, the $3.5 billion cuts to the Medicare, the $7 co-payment that's not going to cost you, the person, much money, but the government intends to save $3.5 billion. You can't tell me that's not coming out of our pockets. But what I really want to talk to you about is the co-payment is really not the problem. The government's got a little tiny incentive, I think, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. What they want to do is they want to start privatising these things, and that's my fear. Medicare is no longer going to be a public entity. It's going to be starting to go more privatised.
I spoke of poverty and of greed, the demise of democracy. I spoke of sustainability and of biodiversity. I dreamt every member understood my words. I was as proud could be. The call from the floor, it was for more. And the gallery, they all agreed. And then I awoke in a shearing shed on a bale of greasy wool. The clapping was the clatter of cutters and combs, and the cheering was the bleating ewes.
It's only 2 years till the next election. It's not long. We can get moving. We've put up with 1 year of it. If we get moving now, we can make a difference. It's only the government of the day. It's temporary. We're not.